The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
We are now about to witness the truth.
it's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Thursday, March 23rd, 2017. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, I'd like to start the show by thanking our supporters, all of our patrons, everyone who contributes and helps makes the Benjamin Dixon Show possible, all the people working behind the scenes. Special thank you to all of you, etc., etc., etc. So much happened. Well, I don't know. It's somewhat of slow news day, but just in the last few minutes, the news day got very, very exciting, and we'll discuss that momentarily. You can join the conversation, 857-600-0518 to join the conversation. Leave us some comments in the comment section on YouTube. We'll be bringing up your chat so that we can see your chat on our screen. We'll discuss some of your comments as they come in. Also, hang on, let me put this over here now. I'm pulling up the chat. That's too big. Hang on. This is one of those things I was supposed to have done before the show started, but anyway, maybe I'll fix it when the first caller calls in. Let's talk about what happened just a few moments ago with Donald Trump. So today is actually we're going to see what Trump is made of, I guess you can say. I'm really at a loss as to where to start with this guy. Let me start with how I'm impressed. It's going to shock a lot of people. He just made a move with regard to healthcare that I think is actually a brilliant political move that wagers. It's a big risk. Big risk, big reward, big risk, big failure. Now, I'm not speaking on the nature of the bill, of the American Health Care Act, blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about all the things it's going to do to hurt people. We've discussed that ad nauseum. I'm also not talking about anything other than the fact that Donald Trump just made a power play with his own party. I think it's ultimately going to backfire. But first, I guess I should tell you what the hell it is. So Donald Trump, according to Reuters, issued an ultimatum to Republicans to fall in line behind a, quote, a broad health insurance overhaul, or he will not support their affordable care, their desire to repeal the Affordable Care Act. In other words, support this bill that you were supposed to have voted on today, or else I'm not going to do anything to overturn Obamacare. This is a power play. And I hate to use that type of language with regard to a guy who thinks he's the king of power plays. But this is classic politics. This is something LBJ would have done, kind of ramming this through his own party. And keep in mind, he's doing this on a piece of legislation that he should not have gotten behind in the first place. Right. Probably a piece of legislation that he doesn't even know what the hell is in there. So it's not a brilliant move on behalf of a brilliant piece of legislation. It's a brilliant move on behalf of someone trying to save face because he put all of his political capital behind a bill that was not draconian enough for the Freedom Caucus, but too draconian for moderate Republicans, or at least Republicans that are at risk in their districts. So this is according to Reuters. Again, there's a quote from Representative Chris Collins of New York. He said, the president has said that he wants to vote tomorrow, up or down. If for any reason it's down, we're just going to move forward with additional parts of his agenda, like tax reform. I mean, this is also a great way, again, for him to save face and to make it seem as though he is in control of the destiny of this bill or his policy agenda. Ultimately, he's trying to insulate himself from the damage that's going to occur when this bill doesn't pass. He went to the Hill today, made calls, or he went to the Hill on yesterday, made calls trying to pressure the Freedom Caucus, trying to pressure the 29 members of the Freedom Caucus to support this bill. They, when I say they, other members of the people who are writing the legislation, try to make it seem as though they were going to give some concessions and to attack Medicare and Medicaid directly. This is what the Freedom Caucus wants. So you got to keep in mind, right? The Freedom Caucus, in a way, and we discussed this yesterday, the Freedom Caucus, in a way, they're helping people by wanting to hurt people even more. And I think that's so fascinating. Like, they want to hurt more people by attacking Medicaid and Medicare directly. They don't want those type of entitlements to begin with, but by being recalcitrant with regards to those and intransigent with regards to those safety nets, I guess we can call them, because I can't think of the word I'm looking for right now. But because they want to attack that directly, they are stalling this plan that is ultimately going to hurt millions of Americans. So because I can't hurt you enough, they're going to actually help Americans. The Congressional Budget Office actually came out with revised numbers today showing that it's actually this bill, Trumpcare, is going to hurt many more people than they originally estimated. It's going to hurt the deficit. It's going to increase the deficit even more. And so here we are with a piece of legislation that Donald Trump should have never gotten behind in the first place. And now he's put all of his political capital behind it. He's put phone calls behind it. He's put his name, his reputation. His press secretary went out just today, and said that tonight this is going to pass, and it's not going to pass. So they put the entire force, the weight of the White House behind a piece of legislation that they should never have gotten behind in the first place. And quite frankly, Donald Trump probably doesn't know what the hell is in it. They put all this political capital behind it only to have it explode in their face. And now he has to make a power play. And the power play is get with the program, Republicans, and support this bill. And if you don't, then I will not get behind anything. We're going to move on from healthcare. We're not going to talk about healthcare anymore. I think this is a big risk. But you have to ask yourself, put yourself in the seat, in the place of the Republicans who are fighting against it. And again, one more side note, rather. It is so fitting and so beautiful and so perfect that this is being scuttled by his own party. This is not, the Democrats don't have enough. They literally, Republicans can do whatever the hell they want. They have the House, they have the Senate, and they have the White House. And they can't get this bill that they have been wishing for and dreaming about for 7 years. And I think today is 7 years to the day since they passed Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. And they've been dreaming about repealing it all of this time. And here they are. They have the opportunity. They have the platform. They have the representation, and they can't get it done because half of the caucus, or not half, but a small percentage of the caucus really wants to hurt Americans even more than Donald Trump wants to. And the other part of the Republican caucus says that they can't risk taking away these benefits that people are thriving on, that are helping people out. So it's so fitting that we find ourselves in this position where the Republicans are cannibalizing themselves. They are contributing to their own political demise. And in order to save face, Donald Trump has put this ultimatum on the table. Here's how ultimatums work, though, right? They can work out spectacularly for you, but they can also come back and destroy you, right? So this could ultimately, tomorrow morning, if they don't have an up or down vote, Donald Trump could permanently enshrine Obamacare in the American system to the detriment of all of those politicians, including himself, who promised that they were going to repeal and replace. I can't imagine a more fitting end to this than Republicans really having a civil war and destroying themselves over something that they were supposed to be working on and actually planning for 7 years. And again, like I said on many other episodes, this is the reason they can't find a solution, a better solution, is because ideologically they can't go any further to the right on a policy than Obamacare already is. Obamacare is a conservative policy. Obamacare is a market-based system that does not do anything to undermine the healthcare industry. It actually is a give me to the healthcare industry. So Republicans can't really find anything better because of their ideological constraints. but instead they are now running around like chickens without a head, threatening each other. And I would really love to see how the Republican caucus responds to this. I'm sure we'll see within the next few hours. Probably by the time most of you listen to this tomorrow morning, you'll have that answer. But what human nature really is that what is more important to them, their pride, because Donald Trump has challenged their pride and their ego, or their desire to get rid of Obamacare. So a lot of people are going to be weighing that in the balance tonight. And I believe that Donald Trump is getting ready to run up against the ego of a whole bunch of other white, rich, privileged men. You start measuring the size of each other's egos and you have a pissing match, and really nobody wins. But in this case, America wins because Obamacare will stay in place at least until a really progressive administration comes in and gives a single payer. All right. So much to talk about with Donald Trump, but we'll take this caller first. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
What's going on, Ben? It's Al again, man, out of good old Detroit.
Hey, Al, what's going on, man?
In terms of not much. I've been listening to a lot of people talk, and I hear people why they voted for Donald Trump, talk about it was financial reasons. My thing is, and you probably could paint this picture a little bit better. Last time I checked, a lot of these social programs that we did had started in the New Deal and the Great Society. Mm-hmm. So most of this stuff wasn't even really geared for minorities anyway. Well, all of a sudden, that minorities are starting benefiting from it. You got people got an attitude problem about it. What's your take on that?
There's some truth to this, right? Thanks for the call, man. There's some truth to this, and the reason there's some truth to this is because the New Deal in the first place, they made a lot of negotiations in the New Deals to keep African Americans out of the New Deal. But it's ironic that the wet dream of Republicans and conservatives for the longest time has been to get rid of the New Deal. And the New Deal has been beneficial to working class Americans, white Americans. I mean, it originally basically benefited them in its entirety, with a lot of exceptions or exclusion to the exclusion of African Americans. But what's ironic is that for the last, I don't know what the New Deal. Let's place the New Deals in the 40s, right, or the late 30s. So for the last 80 years. Republicans have been fighting tooth and nail to undo the New Deal because they don't want anything that's remotely connected to socialism, connected to, in the American being implemented by the American government. And they have convinced their poor constituents that this is the way to go because this represents true freedom, right? It's the same type of psychopathy that Paul Ryan demonstrates when he says that this New Deal, this new healthcare bill that is by design going to hurt millions of Americans is actually an act of mercy because it grants you freedom, right? It's the same type of doublespeak is really the more accurate term. It's the same type of doublespeak that has been embedded in conservative ideology for the last 80 years. And now we're at a point where there may be a crack. There may finally be a crack in that seal. But and by that, you look at the popularity, right? The very quick uptick in popularity of the Affordable Care Act, which again is a conservative ideology, a conservative piece of legislation, but it is the crack in the seal is evident by the fact that people are now recognizing that what the Republicans want to do is actually going to hurt us. Why did it take so long? Why did it take us to get to the brink? Why did it take them electing a Republican administration, a House and Senate, and then giving them the power to actually hurt them? It's because the doublespeak has been very powerful over the last 30 years. Over the last 80 years. So, yeah, let's take this next caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
It's me, Scotty.
Scotty, what's up, man? What's on your mind?
I'm good. I just read a story in The Intercept, and it's called Senate Republicans Just Voted to Sell You Out to Advertisers. And what it's talking about is that the Senate voted along party lines to gut FCC rules to not sell your information to advertisers like
Verizon or Comcast. And of course, what's going to happen is it's going to pass the House. And also, what this tells me is that net neutrality is on the ropes. I mean, it's pretty much gone at this point. So, savor the time that we have with the free internet. And there's not enough people on the left talking about this. Like, I heard you talked about it and the Young Turks, but not too many other people. And, of course, the NAACP and National Urban League aren't going to talk about it because, well, they're both bought off by these companies. So that's all I just wanted to say.
Hey, yeah, man, thanks for the call. Actually, it's a story that we've been compiling and wanted to dive into a little more deeply here on the show. But there's a consistent effort led by the Republicans, and you even have a handful of Democrats who support it, to undermine net neutrality and to expose us to exactly what you're saying. We're going to cover that in a lot more detail. We may actually hit some of that tonight in this show, but it's they actually have the numbers to do it, and the question is whether or not we're going to be able to make enough noise to extract political pain, right? To cause them enough political pain. Like here's the thing for me. I feel as though if the Republican movement can be fractured over something that they've been fighting for 7 years, to repeal Obamacare, then we quite frankly can help. We could probably fracture them on every issue. And that's our only hope. Our hope is not in numbers because we don't have the numbers. Our only hope is to actually extract as much political capital and pain, cause as much political pain for them to support these policies that undermines net neutrality, that to support these policies that exposes us and gives away our information and makes us more than just data points, makes us individually profit points on the internet. So yeah, we're going to cover that a lot more significantly. Let's take one more call, and while we take this call, I'm going to try to fix the screen one more time. Go ahead, caller. You're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, it's me, Bryce. So obviously, I was just talking about just now of net neutrality. We knew that this was going to probably happen, and hopefully we can fight it, or if we had to take a hit like this, hopefully we can overcome it in a sense. But we knew the Republicans were going to do whatever it takes to just, do what they do best.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically screw over everybody they can, and the Democrats are just too weak to really fight unless it really benefits them. And of course, I don't think that this healthcare thing is going to work. I think it's going to fail. And even though there's pressure from everybody and Trump making threats, I think, like you said, the egos and people that really help put him in on that type of level has a little bit more say, more power, and the effect of that they'll tell Trump, yeah, you can threaten us all you want, but we can get you out of here like that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like a tit for tat type of thing of,
Yeah.
Who's pulling the strings. But I guess we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the call, Bryce. Yeah, I think he's going to run into the ego. He's going to run into the ego of you. Listen, I can only say this from a man perspective, so I'm not trying to be anything other than speak from the perspective that I understand. Egos are a huge problem for men. Maybe it's a problem for women. I don't know. I can't really speak to it. But for men, it is a huge problem. You cannot tread on the egos of men on a regular basis and expect them to not turn around and do something that may do something stupid, right? And from this perspective, it's a little convoluted, because what Republicans want to do is actually stupid, but their ego is going to cause them to do something stupid against their own agenda to do even more stupid things, right? So they're going to end up running headlong into Donald Trump, fighting against Donald Trump, and ultimately it's going to keep Obamacare in place because of egos are colliding. The best way, who was it? There's a lady rapper. I can't think of her name, but she said, if you want to keep a man, if you want a man for a night, basically have sex with him. But if you want a man for his life, stroke his ego, right? You can extrapolate that to this conversation. If you want to get something out of a man, play to his ego. And Donald Trump is stomping all over these men's pride. Like, if these men capitulate, and I'm only speaking in a very, what's the word? I don't even have the language right now. I'm speaking in a very male-oriented way because I can't speak to the ego problems that women have. I just don't have enough experience with women with egos. I have a lot of experience with men with egos. And Donald Trump is really treading all over them. And I would just love to see how many of these guys are going to capitulate and bow down to Donald Trump, or are they going to undermine their own agenda and say, to hell with you, Donald Trump. We're not doing anything you say. This is going to be a spectacular collision of hubris and ego for the next 24 hours. And I'm sorry, women, and non-gender conforming people, I'm sorry if I'm not being inclusive in my language, but I feel like this might be something that you're okay with not being included in, that this ego and this hubris and this pride thing that has caused a lot of damage throughout world history. It's predominantly been throughout history a male phenomenon. So we're going to see a spectacular show of how this collides over the next 24 hours. All right. Speaking of egos and childlike mistakes, I want to play a clip of Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi is not one of my favorite politicians by long, but I'm going to tell you the truth. I absolutely love this clip, and you'll see why in a second.
I don't know if you want to call this, on Trump's part, a rookie's error, but you don't find a day and say we're going to pass a bill. You build your consensus in your caucus, and when you're ready, you set the date to bring it to the floor. But so eager were they to, to be mean-spirited, to say we're going to bring up this bill on the same day as the 7th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act. Rookie's error, Donald Trump. You may be a great negotiator. Rookie's error for bringing this up one day when clearly you're not ready. And how are they moving to get ready? Here's how they're moving. Now we hear Republicans are planning changes to destroy the protections of more than 100.
Oh, you can get it there. You get it there. I don't care about the substance of it, because the substance of it we've already actually discussed. But oh my God, Nancy Pelosi, I effing love. I mean, that's beautiful. That's beautiful politics to me. That's beautiful, because this is absolutely 100% about Donald Trump's, if I could be so redundant, ego in action, right? Donald Trump probably has not read this bill. Donald Trump probably can care less about the ramifications of this bill in either direction. And you could actually see this evident by the fact that he's willing to just move on from it. This was 100% about Donald Trump trying to ram this through on the anniversary of the passage of the Affordable Care Act, and not only for the sake of spiting President Obama, but also to stroke his own ego and to say, I get things done, right? He wants to be known as the business-oriented president, and he gets stuff done, and he's the guy who gets the deal done, and he's the guy who gets, he's going to always make the better deal, and he can see a crappy deal a mile away, and the Iran deal was a crappy deal, and, everything is a crappy deal to him. So this was all about him trying to show America that he can ram this through as quickly as he possibly can. He doesn't care about the legislation. He doesn't care about Paul Ryan. He doesn't care about Paul Ryan's wet dreams of gutting the infrastructure, gutting the safety nets, rather. He doesn't care about this Atlas Shrugged society that Paul Ryan, he doesn't care about any of that. All he cared about was getting this done as quickly as he possibly could so that he could look good. And when you step into it like that, you're going to make what Nancy Pelosi said, beautifully said, a rookie mistake. Now, Nancy Pelosi really should probably go away. Not even should. She should not probably go away, but absolutely go away. Nancy Pelosi, great take, great video. I love the video. Matter of fact, I would high five you if I saw you in real life. You'd probably throw security at me, but I get it. It was a great clip. But man, Donald Trump, I think the number one takeaway out of this entire first 60 days is that he's a rookie and that he doesn't know how Washington works and that he's letting his ego and his pride go before him And so, what's the old saying from a old prophet? A haughty spirit, pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before the fall. So, Donald Trump # rookie of the year. There you go. That's what we should do for Donald Trump. All right. Let's keep going. Let's talk some more. I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to go to Rick Perry and clown him for a little bit, and then we'll come back and talk about Donald Trump one last time. Rick Perry, instead of focusing on how many do we have, like 6,300 nuclear weapons that we still have, instead of focusing on his responsibility as the Secretary of the Department of Energy, he has waded into a student government election from Texas. The student government has of Texas A&M. They have elected their first gay student government association president. This is according to Houston Chronicle. Rick Perry felt as though this was something significant enough for him to wade into. Of course, Rick Perry used to be the governor of Texas. And so he actually took time away from managing, upgrading, securing, modernizing our nuclear arsenal to wade into his concern over Texas A&M electing an openly gay student president. I don't even know. So let me just give you some more facts. I really don't quite know what to say about how absurd this is just yet. So he submitted a complaint via a letter to the Houston Chronicle. Okay, number one, you have to seriously be angry to write a letter about something. He didn't tweet about it, right? Most of us just, we're upset, we'll tweet about it. No, he's really bothered by the fact that they elected an openly gay president at a college university, at a university. I mean, okay, let's keep going. He said of the first openly gay student president that it was stolen from a candidate who received the most votes, that this candidate was disqualified because of election irregularities. Perry thought that this made a, quote, mockery of due process and transparency. Folks, he's taking this shit very, very seriously. I mean, we're talking about student government. We're not talking about even a state Senate, state house seat. We're talking about student government. He went on to say, actually, so the person who was disqualified, he was disqualified for not providing receipts for information. There's a little minutia here, but Bobby Brooks was declared the new student president. Robert McIntosh was the student who actually received the most votes, but because of those irregularities, he was disqualified. So McIntosh actually seems like the adult here. He says, "I'm thankful for Secretary Perry's support of fairness in the Houston Chronicle. I did not at all expect his editorial, and I'm humbled to have his support. He made a compelling case for which I supported." Of course, he's like, "Thank you, Secretary." But it's so absurd. I don't quite know how to follow, except this is an important point. This is something that makes this ridiculous story a little darker, or quite dark. It's the fact that the student is openly gay, and Rick Perry considers this to be some type of affirmative action for diversity, right? To insinuate that the only reason this guy won this SGA position was because he was gay. Now, this inserts a whole different color into the conversation, right? Because one, this is like, stay out of children's business, right? And I hate to I'm not trying to dismiss them as children, but we're talking about a college election. We're talking about students who are still finding themselves trying to, establish themselves, young adults, right? They're young adults. They're trying to find their way. This is quite literally like you're getting involved in an argument between kids on the playground, and you're not coming in to make the situation better. You're coming in to make it worse. As if that wasn't absurd enough, now he's insinuating that it's because this student is gay, and they basically wanted to make it some type of affirmative action for the LGBTQ community. So where it could be just an absurd conversation, it actually becomes rather disgusting, because now here's a guy who should be focused on his responsibilities as the Secretary of Energy, instead coming in, wading into a conversation about college campuses and the Student Government Association, and inserting a homophobic angle to this conversation. Because it's not enough for this to just be an issue of a student getting disqualified, right? And you disagreeing, which you shouldn't even be in the conversation in the first place. But okay, you disagree with the fact that this student was disqualified. You have to insert into there that, well, he was intentionally disqualified because they wanted to put their first openly gay Student Government Association president there. We are surrounded by clowns. We're surrounded by clowns who are feckless, but we're also surrounded by clowns who are feckless and insidious. And they have a very hateful and spiteful undercurrent to everything that they do. And unfortunately, for the most part, we're stuck with these bastards for the next 4 years. But, maybe the silver lining in this could be the people who can see, maybe, and this is a big maybe, and this is quite idealistic of me, right? But maybe people can see through their own bigotry who would side with Rick Perry on the claims that this is some type of affirmative action. Maybe they can see through that bigotry for a moment and just see how damn childish this entire administration is, and can take a step back and say, I may be a bigot just like Rick Perry, but why the hell is this dummy involved in this conversation in the first place? That's wishful thinking probably, but you never know. Maybe it'll work. 857-600-0518. Nunes is back in the news again. He was the House Intelligence Chairman, and we discussed on yesterday how he basically became the stooge, to borrow another set of words from Nancy Pelosi, who gets on my nerves, but I love her today. Stooge for Trump. He apologized. He had to apologize to the Democrats and to the Republicans on his committee because he took information that he received, and instead of giving it to them first, he ran to the White House to inform them of what he found. And then he went to the press to inform them of what he found. Now, ultimately, an apology is irrelevant and not enough, right? He did concede the fact that he did something wrong, but we didn't need him to. We knew he messed up. He knew he messed up. The question is, are they going to get an independent investigator to actually take over this investigation? Because we see, and as many of us have already known, they're not capable. Congress is not capable of carrying out this investigation effectively, first of all, but without a political agenda. And Nunes, of course, was on the transition team for Donald Trump. So, of course, he has an agenda. He wants to be Trump's boy. He wants to be Trump's, inside man. And as a result, he's undermined his credibility. Because think about it, he's on the House Intelligence Committee. After what he did on yesterday, do you really believe that any of our intelligence community will want to divulge anything to this guy? So he has undermined his credibility as a chairman, not only with regard to this investigation in Russia allegations and everything else, but also with his job in general. He's not going to be able to lead this committee effectively. And so apologies, whatever. He actually, in this case, probably needs to step down from being the chair, whether or not he steps down from the entire committee. But as we know, expecting the House to oversee their own problems is like expecting the wolf to guard the hen house. All right. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about this caller who's calling in. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, this is Brianna.
Hey, Brianna, what's on your mind?
I just want to get back to the health care plan that they're going to delay the vote on probably tomorrow. Not sure if they're not going to vote at all tomorrow. But I just want to get back and say, the Republicans, when it comes to that situation, are in a lose-lose situation. Because on one hand, if you vote yes and this thing passes, which it seems very difficult now, but it can still pass, then you're going to have majority of your voters coming after you and kicking you out of office.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have Trump saying, because a poll just came out today saying only 15% of all Americans approved it, of this health care plan. And on the other hand, if you vote against it, then you're going to have Trump coming after you, and he's going to send his rabid supporters come after your behind as well, and they can get you out of office. So So they're basically
screwed. You know, they've been screwed.
Cannibalizing themselves right now.
Yeah. No, thanks for the call, Brianna. They've been screwed since the moment they got power to actually put up or shut up. Right. So the moment Donald Trump won and it became evident that they're the dog that finally caught the truck. They don't know what to do with it. Once Donald Trump won, it became painfully evident that they had no clue how they were going to proceed on this bill. But not only that, do you really be careful what you wish for, right? Let's just use all the colloquialisms I have tonight. Be careful what you wish for, because now you're stuck in a situation where the only solution that you have is not a solution. It's going to hurt your voting base. It's going to tangibly, physically hurt millions of people that are your constituents, right? So they were screwed from the moment that Donald Trump won, because their only solution was to try to somehow go further to the right with healthcare. And the only way you can go any further right with healthcare is by undermining your constituents and potentially losing your seat in 2018. We discussed that, right? And we thought, I mentioned that the weekend after Donald Trump won, right? So Donald Trump won on Tuesday, November 8th. Saturday morning on Politics and Grits was our first episode of Politics and Grits. And I mentioned that. And Sam Cedar from the Majority Report actually chimed in, and he's because my contention was, they're going to go full force. They're going to repeal it because this is what they've been waiting on, and they're going to lose the majorities in the House and the Senate, or one or the other, by 2018. But Sam Cedar chimed in and said, actually, no, what they're going to do is they're going to pass the bill now and not let the effects of it take place until after 2018, so that they can insulate themselves from the ramifications of their actions. They get a quick victory here, and then they get a victory in 2018 because nobody's going to feel the hurt until after 2018. Well, both of us were actually wrong. This is spectacularly going down in flames. And now the real person they have to face is going to be Donald Trump. But on the flip side, and we'll talk about this after the next caller, the Koch brothers, I don't know how they're no longer seen as the equivalent evil as George Soros, because on the left, George Soros is like the devil. But no, the Koch brothers are the equivalent, right? But they're actually doing something good, probably for the wrong reason. They've promised to back any congressperson that opposes this health care bill from Paul Ryan and Donald Trump. They promised to back them with 7 figures of financial support. So, what are you going to be afraid of? Donald Trump, who probably is not going to raise any money for you, he himself is just going to survive off of his media prowess, or your sugar daddies over here, who's going to give you 7 figures, give you $1 million or more to oppose Donald Trump. This is going to be a spectacular explosion of evil intentions and fecklessness. Let's take this next caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hi, John from Mississippi.
John, long time no hear, man. Good to hear from you. What's on your mind?
I have a theory concerning Representative Nunes, and that is that we know he was on the transition team at some point, which I don't know how that's not a conflict of interest for active Congress people to be on the executive transition team. But anyway, I think he unintentionally gave us a window into why he's acting so panicky, in that he complained about how things were improperly masked. And, that means that when they cover up people's names in reports, to not give too much a heads up as to blow their own investigation, that he recognized exactly who some of those people were. And my theory is that he was close enough involved with it that he just recognized it by either the dialogue itself, or maybe even he would he possibly recognized something that he was a part of.
You know what? Considering how recklessly he behaved, I could see why you would draw that theory.
He literally walked to the White House.
Yeah.
He literally walked to the White House.
Dude was nervous about something, right? It's like,
that's my theory. I'm sticking to it.
Hey, appreciate the call, John. That's a good theory because, like, how nervous do you have to be to jump up from your office and not catch an Uber, but walk over to the White House to discuss what you just found out? I don't know. You know, it's pure speculation at this point. But I have another colloquy over there, right? Hurt dogs holler, right? You know, if the dog that's hurt the most is going to be one to scream, do something out of ordinary. So it'll be fascinating to see how this actually plays out. I'm sorry, I'm a little giddy about this, to be honest with you. And I think I've said why already, but can I just say it again? It is so enjoyable to see a party who has waited so long to screw Americans and to stick it to President Obama not be organized enough when they have all the rings of power. They have all of it. There's nothing that Democrats could really do to stop them. And at least on this first issue, now this could be a lesson learned, right? They could regroup. They could re-strategize, get some better George Bush strategery, and come back and really be an organized, well-oiled machine and ram through some things that are really going to hurt America. But at least this is the calm before the storm. Maybe that storm is coming, but for right now, we can quite literally laugh at how spectacularly they are cannibalizing themselves and they're falling over themselves. They're making really unforced errors. Right? This Nunes, this was an unforced error. He did this to himself. So, I mean, enjoy it while we can, because maybe they'll get organized. I don't know, but Donald Trump is chaotic. He ran in chaos, and so it only makes sense that he would govern in chaos. All right. We only have a few more. Well, actually, we have about 15 more minutes, so maybe we can get one more call in before we end the show. But a few more stories with regard to healthcare, and then we're going to talk about Donald Trump and his ride in the big boy truck. We're definitely going to cover that. But so Donald Trump's is going to actually face Donald Trump is going to face a filibuster on the the Affordable Care Act, but on his nominee to the Supreme Court, Gorsuch. Finally, after floating an idea of siding with Republicans on this nominee with the hopes that Mitch McConnell would not go nuclear on the filibuster for the next nominee. Finally, Democrats have come to their senses and said that they're going to hold the line. And I say come to their senses because what sense does it make to capitulate now for the hopes of someone not hurting you later the same way that they're free to hurt you now? It makes no sense whatsoever. It is cowardice. It is poor strategy. I was joking earlier when I said strategery, and now that shit is stuck in my head. It is a poor strategy, and it's cowardice. But so maybe they finally found their sense. Chuck Schumer of New York has come out and said that he's not going to support this nominee. Other Democrats are coming out saying that they're not going to support this nominee to the Supreme Court. And so essentially it looks like they're going to filibuster. Now, ultimately, the Republicans can go nuclear and force this guy through. But there's a political cost to pay for that. Right. And so it doesn't, is the political cost high enough to stop them? No, but when you're not necessarily, but when you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't situation, you don't capitulate. You go down fighting, right? And I think that's what most Americans really want from the Democratic Party at this point. you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You try to negotiate with political terrorists, Mitch McConnell now, and he'll just steamroll you later, right? So right now is a time for them to stand up against this Gorsuch guy. Gorsuch is problematic. I don't care how good he presents himself. He's problematic. According to Democracy Now!, they did an interview with Gorsuch's college classmate, and the college classmate stated that Gorsuch attacked anti-apartheid and civil rights protesters and defended the Contras. This shows you insight into who he was in his most formative years. While a student at Columbia University, he attacked the university for its divestment from South Africa. This was during the boycott, the divestment movement against apartheid South Africa, and where most of the country, well, a good percentage of the universities, the students on the university campuses during this time found solidarity with the divestment movement. Here's Neil Gorsuch, the guy who's poised to become a Supreme Court justice. He's fighting against it. And this should not come as any surprise, right? But it's just another layer of understanding the type of thinking this guy has. And of course he presents well. Of course he delivers well, and he sits there and he looks like the perfect statesman. But in reality, underneath that veneer of statesmanship is a radical ideology that benefits from the status quo, right? He can sit there and be the most dignified statesman that you've ever seen. Meanwhile, his ideology is harmful to millions of people in the United States and globally. And his ideology is lifted up simply by not changing a damn thing. Right? This is why he can afford to be an originalist. He could afford to be a strict constitutionalist and appear dignified because he doesn't have to fight to change anything. All he has to do is fight to conserve the world as he prefers it. And the world as he prefers it, according to this interview with Democracy Now!, is a world that would not have divested from South Africa. Another decision that he was involved in was that really shows the character was his ruling on the appellate court during a case with regard to a frozen truck driver. So the case involves a lawsuit brought by Alphonse Madine, who was a truck driver. He was driving trucks for Trans Am. This was while Gorsuch was on the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in Colorado. And so the background of the story is this truck driver was driving this cargo for Trans Am. The trailer broke down and was not drivable, or at least it was unsafe for him to drive. And he phoned in to headquarters and let them know that I cannot drive this truck. Well, they said, we'll come out there and help you. Stay with the goods, stay with the truck. We'll come out there and help you. Long story short, he waited hours and they never showed up. So ultimately, he detached the trailer, left because he was getting frostbitten, right? He was in danger personally for his own personal health. And so he left the trailer so that he could go and get warm and take care of himself. Ultimately, he was fired. He was fired by Trans Am because he did not remain with the trailer and he did not deliver the goods. Here's the question that came to Gorsuch with regard to labor law. According to labor law, the truck driver did not have to operate the truck underneath those conditions. And in fact, it's illegal to fire someone because they did not, or because they refused to operate underneath dangerous situations. The initial ruling ruled in favor of the truck driver, saying that he had a choice between putting his life at risk or driving a trailer that was dangerous, which also put his life at risk. So the original ruling was in his favor. Gorsuch came back and said no. He said, he had a choice, and he had a choice between stay here, it's uncomfortable, but stay here and we'll get there when we get there, or drive this truck, which is illegal for you to drive because it's malfunctioning. And he said, they're both bad choices, but ultimately he did have a choice. And because he took a third choice, which was not in his realm of options, he should and could have been fired. So it may be a little convoluted, but I want to see if I can break it down a little more plainly. Gorsuch said that option A is not really an option because it's illegal. It's illegal for this company to force you to drive this truck under dangerous and hazardous conditions. Option B was for you to stay in the truck. I know it's cold. I know you're getting frostbitten, but they said that they were going to come to help you. So they were giving you a solution. That was the option that you should have taken. Option C was not an option, and you took it upon yourself to leave, abandon this abandon this trailer and go take care of yourself. And he actually said in a very long statement, basically saying that, it may not be fair. It may not feel good. It may have been asking too much of you, but it's not illegal. And so he overturned this decision. Trans Am actually was able to fire him without any ramifications. This shows you a clear window into his thinking, Gorsuch's thinking. However the hell you say Gorsuch is, whatever. Okay. It shows you that he values, or he places a higher value on the letter of the law, even when the letter of the law allows for an injustice. He places a higher value on the position of corporations, right? I think that's the most transparent thing. That's the clearest takeaway from this, that he sided on the side of corporations who didn't do what they needed to do in a timely fashion on behalf of their workers, right? So he sided on behalf of capital versus labor, clearly, corporations versus people, clearly, but also it's that he's willing to read the law, even in a manner that is detrimental to the people that the law was designed to protect in the first place, or at least in the minds of Americans, we believe that these laws are here to actually help us and to further society. And this is an opportunity for Gorsuch to actually show to us that no, you, within the letter of the law, you were wrong, even if it meant you staying in that truck and losing a toe to frostbite. This is a dangerous ideology, and it's dangerous because it protects a status quo that would rather see a man stay in his truck in freezing conditions and possibly losing his legs, limbs, and appendages because of the cold. He would rather stick to the letter of the law, even when the law causes physical harm to American citizens. What good is a law if the law actually harms people? Not criminals, not illegals, if you want to use that phrase, not people who are doing something illegal against the law, but people who are trying to live according to the law and just make a living. Gorsuch would rather side on the letter of the law at the expense of our safety. Again, I want to say this for a third time. This is a dangerous ideology that benefits from the appearance of simply ruling in favor of the strict interpretation of the law. It benefits the status quo. It protects the status quo. And as long as we do that, as long as we allow people to justify actually tangibly hurting Americans because they're sticking to the letter of the law instead of the spirit of the law, then we will always get people like Gorsuch who can sit there and look as though he is the most dignified statesman, when in reality, underneath it, he is one of the most radical and harmful, or has and harbors the most radical and harmful ideology, which is harmful to so many people who fall outside the realm of protection of how this country was originally founded in the first place. I miss me every single time. Miss me with anybody who comes to say that they're strict constitutionalists, because all it does is protect the people that were benefited in America in the first place. White men, period. End of conversation. All right. How much time do we have here? We may not have time for any more callers. The last thing I want to talk about tonight would be Donald Trump one more time. And I have to preface this entire conversation based on a video. So let me just stop talking. Let's play that video. So for those of you watching on the radio, this is Donald Trump getting inside of a Mack truck on the White House lawn. And that's him pulling the. and if you could see his facial expressions as the audience laughs, he quite literally looks like a big kid, a child. And actually, even better. Before we go, on your screen, you're going to see some shots from the Associated Press of his facial expressions while he was honking the big horn on the big truck. And this is, look at his facial expression here. This is our president. This is the president of the United States, ladies and gentlemen. He's so excited about being in this big truck, and. Oh my, I'm sorry to the radio audience. I can't express to you how ridiculous the president of the United States really is. I mean, he looks like a 5-year-old behind a toy truck, driving it like a bat out of hell. I mean, that's the only way I could describe it. Please go to YouTube. The people listening on the radio, please go to my YouTube channel and look at this man's facial expressions. Let's go to the last one. And then of course this was a big day. This was a big day for our big boy president. Trump's a big boy now because he got to ride in the Mack truck on the lawn of the White House. It dawned on me. It dawned on me that we are dealing with a child. We're dealing with a 70-year-old child. We're dealing with, in history, we would refer to him as a child king. But the problem is that we're not dealing with an adolescent. We're not dealing with a 13-year-old. We're not dealing with a 14-year-old. We're dealing with a 70-year-old man. And we're dealing with a 70-year-old man who has never been challenged in his life because his money and his wealth and his influence of his daddy, protected him from actually having to ever grow up. No adult human being gets inside of a Mack truck and decides to put on this spectacular display of childishness like Donald Trump has. And not just that, this is just the thin icing, the veneer on top of the real story. The real story is that America is having to see if we can survive the maturation or the necessary maturation of a 70-year-old man. Now, realistically, once you get over 35, you're not growing up any more than what you already are. Maybe 40. You don't really change. But we're stuck in a situation with a child king who carries himself like a 14-year-old, not even a 14-year-old, like a 7-year-old, not just because he's getting to play with the big rig trucks. No, but in everything else that he does, America is really being tested to see if we can survive the tantrums and the petulant nature of an immature 70-year-old man who has skated his life through by being wealthy and by having influence and by no one ever really telling him to grow the hell up because everyone around him probably wanted his money. So because Donald Trump, no one ever taught you how to grow up, I'm going to present to you 3 lessons for a child king. 3 lessons that everyone who is in power before they're actually mature enough to be in power, what you should know once you actually get power. Bring that image up because I really want to show them what we're dealing with. This is lesson number 1. Get on the buffer too. Lessons for a child king. Words matter. And of course, we're dealing with this. We're prefacing this with the whole truck fiasco. But in reality, Donald Trump is so childlike in so many other ways that the truck is, like I said, the truck is just easy fodder. But Donald Trump is a child because he doesn't understand the magnitude and the significance of his words. Once you become a child king, your words they carry an impact, right? They have a force. If you're actually in a monarchy, it becomes law, right? But even in the American democracy, what Donald Trump says actually matters. And he's having to learn this the hard way because as he tweeted out the accusation that President Obama actually tapped him or tapped his wires, he's finding out that when he says something, people move into action to qualify and to investigate. And while he may have gone through life and everyone said, oh, this is just Donnie, This is just Donnie. You know, his imagination is running wild. He's such a big boy. He says, give him time to grow up. No, now you are the child king. And what you say, Donald Trump, actually matters. You can't just open your mouth and say something and expect people to turn away and say, oh, that Donnie, he's such a big boy now. No. What you say will cause investigations. What you say will cause foreign leaders to actually reconsider their foreign policy, because now they have to make their foreign policy based on your ranting and raving on Twitter. Your words matter. Number 2, my second lesson for a child king. You can't always get what you want when you want it. Donnie, can I call you Donnie? You ran into this conversation about healthcare, and you ran into it so quickly and so recklessly because you wanted to prove a point, and you wanted to get it done when you wanted to get it done, how you wanted to get it done. And you did not realize that you actually have to deal with other people. You actually have to work with people. In your personal life, you may have been able to throw a tantrum and get what you wanted when you wanted it. But thankfully, that's not how America works. There's not a single president in American history who is able to get everything that they want without negotiating and without, unfortunately, sometimes triangulating with your own party even. And this is a spectacular lesson for you to learn. And it's a shame that we're here as Americans hoping that our child king could actually grow up fast enough so that he would not take his toys, which happen to be nuclear weapons, and destroy the entire world. But we have a president who doesn't even realize that you can't steamroll over your party and get what you want when you want it, how you want it. You actually have to talk to people. You actually have to negotiate. You actually have to listen. You actually have to make a strategy. And it's just staggering that a man who's worth billions of dollars, allegedly, doesn't know this. This is the crutch that wealth and fame gives. I mean, think about all the child stars. Donald Trump is like the child star who grew up and actually didn't overdose, and so he actually got a business as an adult, and now he's the president. But think of all the child stars who cannot handle the pressure of all the money, fame, and success at an early age. Donald Trump barely got out of that stage, and now he's the president of the United States. And we, as citizens of the United States, have to sit back and hope that he would learn the lesson that you cannot get what you want always when you want it. All right, last lesson for Donald Trump, the child king. Number 3, your ego may take you far, but it can also destroy you. I phrase it like this because let's not pretend as though America and capitalism and society does not thrive off the ego of men and women, right? Sometimes the people with the biggest ego can get the further, to get far. They can go and do amazing things because they just steamroll over anyone who would get in their way. That's sort of how America works. So this is not to say that you should go through life without an ego, but this is just to warn you that your ego may take you places, but ultimately it can come back and destroy you. And this is what I believe we're getting ready to see with the ultimatum that Donald Trump has placed on his own party. He said, get in line or else X. Get in line or else I'm not going to deal with Obamacare anymore. And what he's getting ready to run into is the reality that your ego can only carry you so far. And that's up until the point where your ego collides with the egos of other people who have their pride to consider, who have their agenda to consider. And here we are with a child king because he could not get his way. He's throwing a tantrum and saying either have it my way or no way at all. Ultimately, what we're going to see probably in the next 24 hours is Donald Trump, you're not going to have it your way. And Obamacare will still be here because we're dealing with a child king. That's all I've got for you folks. We'll see you tomorrow. But before we go, bonus show tomorrow for all patrons. We're going to talk about dynasties. We're talking about American dynasties, some historical dynasties, and the problematic nature of children of kings, children of presidents, the Clintons, possibly the Obamas. We'll see the Trumps and all the problems that come when you allow money and nepotism to take your children into places they probably shouldn't go. It's a really great episode. It'll be available for you first thing in the morning. If you want to get it, go to patreon.com and become a patron. Folks, it's always been a pleasure. Max, thanks so much. We're out of here.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.